Good morning, everyone. So now we are recording. So are there any other questions pertaining to the assignment? There was one question. All right. If not, then let's start with today's
So I
lecture.
couldn't
So
couldn't
yeah,
hear
go
what you
ahead, go
said
ahead.
in last that I couldn't hear what you said in last 30 seconds. Either my connection was
Oh,
problematic
oh, I
or
see.
something.
What about everybody else?
Sir,
Could
I
you
also
hear
couldn't
me?
hear. I
We
also
can't
couldn't
You
hear.
hear
also
you
couldn't hear
last.
me.
No, sir.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I didn't say anything important. I just said that I've started recording, and there was a question in the beginning about what is an induced cycle and what is an induced subgraph. So I've put down those definitions here. I've written them down. Okay. Are there any other questions pertaining to assignment one or anything we have discussed so far? Okay. And am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thanks. Let me know if at any point my voice gets disconnected. Okay, thanks. All right, so today I just want to quickly wrap up the discussion about cycle space and bond space that we have been having for the last few lectures, and I want to move on to the second module, connectivity of graphs. So I'm not going to do any proofs today. Let's just do a quick review. We saw the edge space of the graph, and we have seen two subspaces, cycle space and bond space. And we have also seen, so the members of the cycle space are the even subgraphs, and the members of the bond space are the cuts of the graph, right? And we have seen that the even subgraphs and cuts are orthogonal to each other. On the assignment, you will be showing a few things. Well, there are several problems. In particular, you will be showing that the cut space, sorry, the cycle space and the bond space are orthogonal complements of each other. And you will be also using spanning trees to show that the dimension of the cycle space and the dimension of the bond space for a connected graph is n minus n plus 1 and n minus 1 respectively. Okay. And the question, of course, arises, what if the graph is not connected? Then you can think about it yourself. I would suggest to you as a that you don't have to turn in to determine the dimensions of the cycle space and the bond space if the graph is not connected. And you might need the following parameter, which is the number of components of the graph. Okay, so they play a role in the dimension formula.
Hi, sir. Your voice is still breaking.
The voice is still breaking. Okay, then connect again. Okay, so I have connected again. Am I audible now?
So like, yes, you're audible now, but you were like, what happens is that you're audible for about 40, 50 seconds, and then for 10 seconds it breaks, and then again
Okay,
something like that.
okay. So let's see how it goes this time. And if it's still happening, then let me know and I will try to fix it.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I have just joined the meeting again.
Sir,
Yeah. Yeah.
sir, I had a question. So,
Mhm.
so what is the purpose of imposing this vector space structure onto this graph? So,
Right. Well, so okay. All right. Mm, so well, do you agree that we have been able to see some graph theoretical structure by using these vector spaces? Like for example, we were able to show that a subgraph is even if and only if you can write it as a disjoint union of cycles, right? And
Yes, sir.
and in the same sense, a cut. So another thing you will be showing. So let me try to answer this in the following way. So another theorem that I was considering proving, but now I'm going to leave it as an exercise, is to show that the set of edges of a graph which forms a cut. So any set of edges is a cut if and only if it is a disjoint union of bonds. Okay, so these are structural statements. A cut of a graph or the bond of a graph, these are completely structural, let's say, objects. We are not using any algebra to define the cut or a bond. But when we impose this algebra on top of the graph, you are able to see that there is a connection between the bonds and the cycles. There is a connection between the cuts of a graph and the even subgraphs of a graph, right? And also this connection will be explored further in future topics in this course, especially when we study planarity. There'll be a concept called the dual of a planar graph. And when we look at the dual, we will again see how cycles and cuts are closely related to each other. So it gives you a better insight into planar duality when you go through this algebraic structure imposed on the graph. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There are also topics in graph theory which we may not be covering in this course. There is a topic called, it's a very beautiful topic called integer flows of a graph. This is chapter 21 in Bondi Murthy, where again you start seeing some deep connections of these algebraic spaces with unsolved problems in graph theory. These are called Tut's flow conjectures. Unfortunately, in this offering of the course, I don't think I'll be able to cover that, right? But we will definitely get a better understanding of planar duality using these two algebraic subspaces. Okay. Good. Any other questions? So, if not, is my voice clear now, or is it still breaking off?
It's clear.
Okay, good, good. So, theorem 2.14, I'm going to leave it as an exercise using induction on the, so you take a set of edges and you induct on the number of edges in this set, right? And what you want to do is you want to use corollary 2.12, which says that the symmetric difference of any two cuts is a cut. Okay, so using this corollary, you can easily prove theorem 2.14 in a similar way as we proved that any even subgraph is a disjoint union of cycles. Okay, so this is a very similar statement for cuts and bonds. Okay, good. So are there any other questions or concerns pertaining to these subspaces associated with a graph before we move on to module 2, which is connectivity? Also, I wanted to give you a connection between all these things with spanning trees. So that's another thing you see when you impose these vector spaces on a graph. You see that spanning trees are, like, sure, you all have seen a bit about spanning trees before, but there is a lot more to spanning trees than what you may have seen in previous courses, especially algorithmic courses. So there is a lot going on in spanning trees with regards to these subspaces of a graph, right? And honestly, there are things that are in the text that I'm not covering here. In chapter 4, I think there are other connections between these spaces and spanning trees. There is a question on the chat box. What exactly is a generator of a group vector space? Okay. Well, do you know what a basis is of a vector space? Shivam? Are you familiar with a basis? Okay, good. So a basis is a generator. It's a set of vectors that generates the entire space and has dimension equal to the dimension of the space. So it's basically a minimal generating set. And a generator does not require the minimal property. So you could have more elements than a basis, but what you want is that it spans the entire vector space, or in other words, it generates the entire space. Does that answer your question? Shivam? Okay, good. So it's a basis plus other stuff, right? But in particular, any generator contains a basis. Okay, good. All right. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, if not, then we are going to, for the time being, leave this space of vector spaces, and we are going to move on to connectivity of graphs, which is our second module. Okay, so let's move on to connectivity. All right. So in the textbook, Bondi Murthy, 2008, there is a whole chapter on connectivity, but I'm going to cover parts of that chapter as well as parts of previous chapters in this module. So just to give you a reference, so in this module, we are going to be covering the following sections from Bondi Murthy: 3.2 and 3.5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, and 9.1 up to 9.4. Okay, this is the chapter on connectivity, but there are other topics that are also in some sense a subset of connectivity. Okay, so these are all the things we'll be covering in this module from the text. Okay, and of course I may not present exactly the way it's presented there, but I will be using the same numbering for propositions, theorems, etc. All right, so, and today I want to tell you about this very beautiful conjecture in graph theory, one of the most important unsolved problems in graph theory. So let me already give you some spoiler. So I want to tell you about the cycle double cover conjecture. Right? I don't want to bore you just with definitions. All right. So we all know what a connected graph is, right? And the reason connected graphs are so important is because a lot of problems in graph theory, you don't need to look at the whole class of graphs. You can just look at connected graphs. And if you can solve the problem for connected graphs, then you can generally solve the open problem for all graphs. Okay. One example that we have already seen. Notice that a graph is even if and only if each of its components is even. Okay. All right. So let's move on to a different notion of connectivity. So what turns out in graph theory is that for many problems, you can restrict yourself to more and more well-connected graphs. So you may, instead of just connected graphs, you may insist stronger connectivity properties. And that is one of the reasons why connectivity is so applicable in all areas of graph theoretical research, almost all areas of graph theoretical research, right? So that's one of the reasons connectivity is really crucial. So we are starting module 2. Connectivity. Okay. So let's start with the following. Which of these graphs seems better connected? I have not defined anything, but I'm just asking you, which of these two graphs looks more connected than the other, whatever that means?
The second one.
Exactly. Right? So that brings us to our first definition. Notice that here there is an edge E such that when you remove the edge E, the graph has two components. In particular, this is a connected graph G1, and now when you remove the edge, you have two components. Okay? And that does not happen in the second graph. In the second graph, you may not you will not be able to remove any edge and disconnect the graph. Okay? And so that brings us to our first definition. An edge E of a graph G is a cut edge if the number of components in G minus E is greater than the number of components in G itself. Okay? And now you can quickly see that if you remove an edge from a graph, the number of components will go up by exactly 1. In particular, if you have a connected graph and you remove a cut edge, you will get exactly 2 components. Okay, so that's an easy fact. So in fact, instead of greater than, you can write down that it is exactly equal to the original number of components plus 1. Okay. Good. All right. So I am pretty sure that most of you, if you've taken MA 2130 or any course in graph theory or discrete math, you've probably seen cut edges before. And I want to state a following proposition. There is a connection between cut edges and cycles. Can someone tell me what it is?
An edge is a cut edge if and only if it's not part of a cycle.
Exactly. Right. So that's the proposition. An edge of a graph is a cut edge if and only if E does not participate in any cycle. Or if you like, does not belong to any cycle. Right? And this is easy to prove. It's an exercise. Do it yourself. Right? Can everyone kind of see how you would prove this? Okay, since there is no one turning on their mic, I guess the answer is yes. But yeah, of course, if you are having trouble proving anything that was stated in the lectures, just start a discussion on Piazza and we will go through it there. Okay. All right. So this is what a cut edge is. Let's see. Now I want to go back to something we have already seen. So in the previous lectures, we defined a decomposition of a graph. Let me just remind you what that is. And I'll connect the topic to cut edges of a graph. A decomposition of a graph G is a family script F of edge disjoint subgraphs of G such that the union of all these subgraphs, if you take the union of their edge sets, you will get the entire edge set of the graph. Okay. And in particular, we talked about cycle decompositions. What is a cycle decomposition? It's a decomposition in which all of the subgraphs are cycles. So I think this is the example I'd used earlier. So let me just use the same example now. So here are two graphs, and one of them has a cycle decomposition. one of them does not have a cycle decomposition. Can anyone tell me which one has a cycle decomposition and which one does not? We have already seen this before.
G1 does and G2 doesn't.
Exactly. So just to give you a visualization, this is, let's say, this red colored cycle and the green colored cycle. This comprises a cycle decomposition of G1, right? You have two edge disjoint subgraphs, and when you take the union, you get the entire edge set of the graph. On the other hand, G2 does not have a cycle decomposition. G2 does not admit a cycle decomposition. Okay, this is exactly what we called Veblen's theorem. A graph has a cycle decomposition if and only if the graph is even. And here you have graphs vertices with odd degree, so you cannot have a cycle decomposition, right? Okay, so maybe we are asking for a bit too much, because when we ask for a cycle decomposition, we only get the even graphs. How about we ask for something weaker? Let's say instead of a decomposition, we ask for what is called a cover. So what's a cover? You still want subgraphs whose union is the entire edge set of the graph. So their unions of their edge sets is the entire edge set of the graph. But let us not insist on edge disjoint. So let me put down another definition and let me be lazy. I'm going to throw away edge disjoint. And this new definition is called cover. Okay, so a cover of a graph is a family of subgraphs such that when you take the union of all the edge sets, you get the entire edge set of the graph. Okay, so let's ask a simpler question. Which graphs admit a cycle cover? So here is an easier question. Which graphs admit a cycle cover? Is the question clear? So let's talk about this graph. Does it have a cycle cover? Does this graph have a cycle cover? This 4-vertex graph? There is an answer on the chat box. Degree at least 2 for all vertices. Okay. Okay, let's think about that. So what about this graph? You want degree at least 2 for all vertices. What about this graph? Does this have a cycle cover?
No,
No. Thank you. Why is that the case?
because
Why?
it has a cut edge.
It has a cut edge, right? So a cut edge is a problem because a cut edge is not in any cycle. Therefore, you cannot cover it using cycles, right? So this graph does not have a cycle cover. And what about the graph on the left? Does it have a cycle cover?
Yes, sir.
Exactly. And why is that the case? Can you give me a cycle cover?
UVY and YVX.
Okay, so this is a cycle cover. For example, you have two red colored cycles. Okay, so they are not disjoint, they share an edge, but that's not a problem because we removed the edge disjoint condition. And they cover all the edges. Every edge participates in at least one of the two cycles. Okay, good. So, well, can someone tell me which graphs admit cycle covers? Can someone tell me, using this proposition, Which graphs admit cycle covers?
Graphs without cut edges.
Exactly. Any graph without a cut edge admits a cycle cover. So the answer to this question using proposition 3.2 above is all graphs that do not have cut edges. Right? So, well, it turned out that this easy question turned out to be very easy, let's say. Right? Does everybody see why the answer is what it is? If the graph does not have any cut edge, then you can find a cycle containing that edge. You just throw it into the cover. There are no restrictions on the. So there is another comment on the chat box, graphs with no bridges. Yes, cut edges are often called bridges. Thank you, Shivam. However, in this course, we will stay away from the term because we are going to use bridges for a different concept when we come to planarity. But that is a correct answer because bridges and cut edges are the same concept, but we will be using bridges for something else. Right? Okay. Right. So this question that we asked turned out to be too easy. So what if we put some more restrictions on our question? What if we ask for a cycle cover with some more restrictive properties? Okay. And of course, you can come up with all sorts of properties, but we are going to look at one very natural property that leads to one of the most important unsolved problems in graph theory. Okay. So we know what a cover is. So we are going to call a cover uniform if every edge appears the same number of times in that cover. Okay. So let me put down the definition and let me give you an example. A cover is uniform if each edge appears the same number of times. Let me give you an example using the example we've already seen. So in this case, the edge Vy appears twice, but all other edges appear, or if you like, are covered exactly once. So this is not a uniform cover. Okay, the cover that we have shown here, which is U, V, Y, U, that is one cycle, and V, Y, X, V. This is another cycle. This is not a uniform cover of this graph, a cycle cover. Can someone tell me if there is a uniform cover? Can someone suggest a uniform cover? What if I want to cover all edges the same number of times? Add UVXY to the cover. Thank you, Shivam. So yeah, let us add this green colored cycle to the cover that we already had. And now this is a uniform cover, right? You are looking at the cover UVY, VXY, and you're looking at UVXY. And this is a uniform cover. In fact, we will call it a uniform cover, but it's also a two cover because each edge is covered twice, and also called a double cover. Okay. So if this number equals k, then the cover is a k cover. Okay. And let's see what else. So what is a one cover? Can someone tell me what is a one cover?
Cycle decomposition.
Exactly. A one cover is exactly a decomposition, right? So we went from decomposition, one cover, then we asked for a cover. That became too easy. You just omit cut edges from the graph, and that's your answer. So now we are going to ask for two covers. Okay. And two covers, we will call them double covers because that's how they are generally called in the literature. Okay. So the question now we are going to ask, which graphs admit a cycle double cover? Okay. Clearly, such a graph cannot have cut edges. Right? Because then you can't even have a cycle cover. So clearly you can't have a cycle double cover. Right? Okay. So let's look at the graph we drew. This 4 vertex graph. This has a cycle double cover. Right? So are there any guesses? What graphs have a cycle double cover? Does anybody already know this very famous conjecture? Well, it's famous in graph theory, but probably not famous anywhere else. Any guesses? Which graphs have a cycle double cover? Can you think of a graph which does not have cut edges and also does not have a cycle double cover? Nope. And I don't expect you to find one right now because this is one of the most important open problems in graph theory. Conjecture, let me see. Okay, they don't state numbers for conjectures. So this is a conjecture from 1973 by Sekeres, Hungarian, of course, because Hungarians perhaps did a lot more combinatorics than the rest of the world for many years. And also by Seymour from 1979. So the conjecture says that every graph without cut edges has a cycle double cover. I don't like the word has. Admits a cycle double cover. Every graph without cut edges admits a cycle double cover. Well, it's open for the last many years. So I just wanted to tell you about this conjecture. I don't know too much about the history of this conjecture, to be honest. Unlike, let's say, the 4-color problem, which we'll talk about later. And I'll give you some history because I'm aware of it. So I don't really know exactly how Sekeres and Seymour both independently arrived at this conjecture. That being said, the conjecture has connections with other areas of graph theory. The one I mentioned before, integer flows of a graph, which is covered in chapter 21 in Bondimurti. and it has connections with other topological areas of graph theory as well. Yeah, so Bondi and Murthy have quite a bit about this conjecture in different chapters. They tell you different things about this conjecture, what has been done, what are the different approaches people have tried, and so on. We won't be covering too much, but I will from time to time tell you a few things about this conjecture, right? So this is the very famous cycle double cover conjecture. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, there is a comment on, there's a few comments on the chat box. At least all graphs can be covered by at least 2 cycles. So I think it was probably, okay, Shayani has a question. How about C5? Okay, so that is a good point to be, okay. So what about C5? Does this graph have a cycle double cover? Right, so there is a technicality which we need to address here. So, right. So we are going to allow in this collection for 2 cycles to appear, for a cycle to appear twice. So a cycle double cover of this graph, yeah, it might seem slightly like a cheating, but that's the definition we are following. So we will take this cycle once, and then they will take the same cycle twice, another time. Okay, so we allow this. And now this is no longer a counterexample. So you can, if necessary, you may repeat the same cycle twice, right? And clearly you won't repeat it thrice, because then you will cover an edge 3 times, which is not what you want. So you are allowed to repeat a cycle if necessary. Okay, so this graph has a cycle double cover. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns pertaining to this conjecture? Okay, so it's 11:40. We have another 10 minutes. Okay, so then okay, so I just wanted to mention this conjecture because it requires a simple concept, which is the concept of cut edges, right? But I want to move on towards connectivity. Okay, so the next question is, let's try to connect with the cycle double cover conjecture. Supposing you want to prove the cycle double cover conjecture, do you need to prove it for all graphs? Clearly, you can restrict yourself to connected graphs, right? That should be fairly clear. A graph has a cycle double cover if and only if each of its components has a cycle double cover, right? To prove the cycle double cover conjecture, we may restrict ourselves to connected graphs. Okay. In other words, if you prove it for connected graphs, then you have proved it for all graphs. Does everybody agree with this? It turns out that you can actually restrict yourself even further. There is a class of graphs that I want to define called non-separable graphs. In fact, we may restrict ourselves to non-separable graphs, whatever that means. And that is our next topic. So I want to tell you about non-separable graphs. And for those of you who have previously seen connectivity in graphs, this is essentially the same as 2 connected graphs. But if you don't know what a 2 connected graph is, then don't worry about it. Okay. The reason we are talking about non-separable graphs instead of 2 connected graphs is because we are allowing loops and multiple edges in our graphs. Okay, so if you want to deal with loops and multiple edges, you sometimes need slightly more general definitions to work with that. Okay, so the entire chapter 5 on in Bondi Murthy is about non-separable graphs. Okay. All right. So let's start with that. Okay. So we have seen what a cut edge is. It's an edge that when you remove, the number of components is going to increase, right? And in this case, it will increase by exactly one. So that brings us to a similar concept of a cut vertex. And there is a related concept called separating vertices, which also we'll be discussing today or in the next lecture. Okay. So let's go back to a cut edge. An edge is a cut edge if the number of components after removing it is greater than the number of components in the original graph. And it's the same definition for a cut vertex. So let's take an example. This graph has no cut edge. However, there is a vertex. And if you remove this vertex, the number of components increases. So this is a cut vertex, right? Okay. Can I say that the number of components should go up by exactly one, or can I not make such a statement?
No, we can't say that.
Exactly. We can't make such a statement. You can make simple examples like here. If you remove the vertex V, you will get 3 components. So you can get an arbitrary number of components after you delete a vertex, which is not the case for an edge. So in that sense, edge deletion is simpler to visualize than vertex deletion. Okay, good. So that's what a cut vertex is. And right. So let's start with a simple theorem that I will actually prove in the next lecture. So let's relate it to connected graphs. A graph is connected if and only if any 2 vertices, well, let me use some notation. For any 2 vertices u and v, there exists a uv path in the graph G, right? So this is, in fact, some would say that this is a definition of a connected graph. But in most texts, the definition uses a concept called walks, and then using walks, you can prove that there is a path, right? But we won't talk about walks and trails and everything in this course. We will restrict ourselves to paths as far as possible. Okay. So that's what a connected graph is. However, if your graph does not have any cut vertex, then you can actually say something stronger about paths between 2 vertices. And that brings us to theorem 5.1. A connected graph has no cut vertices. Okay, let me leave some space here. If and only if for any two vertices there exist two internally disjoint paths. So instead of one path, we are going to talk about two paths that are essentially disjoint. We call them internally disjoint. Okay. So that brings us to the question, what does it mean for two paths to be internally disjoint? Okay, let's take an example. Well, let's take the simplest graph. Let's take a cycle. Okay, and let us call this U and let us call this V. Well, in a cycle, between any two vertices, you can find two paths, right? One you go this way and the other you go the other way. They are not disjoint. They share the two vertices U and V, of course, but they are otherwise disjoint, right? And that is what internally disjoint means. So you will have to share the two ends because they are both UV paths, but you cannot share any other edge or vertex. Okay, so P1 and P2. And for internally disjoint, what you need is that the only vertices that are common to them are U and V. Okay. Okay, this statement as stated is false. Can someone tell me why this statement is false? There are some small examples that are counter examples. Get some water. Can anybody find some small counter examples to this statement? I want a graph that has no cut vertices, but you can also not find two internally disjoint paths between two specified vertices. No guesses? Okay. P1, you mean like this guy? Okay, so I think this is what you mean by P1. So we generally call it K2, sorry, my bad. Right? Okay, so this is a counter example, right? This graph has no cut vertices because if you delete any vertex, you will get a graph with one component, which is, so the vertex is not a cut vertex. And clearly there's only one path between the two vertices U and V, right? So in fact, you need just a condition that the graph has at least 3 or more vertices. Okay, so the number of vertices, in other words, the order of the graph is at least 3. Okay, and tomorrow we will begin by proving this statement. You can try proving it yourself. I'll give you a hint. You can do induction on the distance between the two vertices. Well, let me use DIST. Okay, induction on the distance between the two vertices. And the distance between two vertices of a graph is you take the shortest path between them, and the length of that path is the distance between two vertices. In other words, if the two vertices are adjacent, then the distance between them is 1. right? And that would be your base case. So first you can think about the case where the distance is equal to 1. They are adjacent vertices. And then you can think about the induction step where you take the distance to be greater than 1. Okay, so we'll start from here tomorrow, and we will continue and finish as much of the topics from chapter 5 as we can, so that we can move on to the real content of connectivity, which is in chapter 9 of Bondi Murthy. Okay, but I just want to go through all these basics, which some of you may have already seen. So perhaps today's and tomorrow's lecture might be slightly boring for those of you who have already seen basic concepts of connectivity. But definitely from Monday, I'm hoping you will see stuff that you may not have seen before. Okay? Any questions, concerns? Yes, I'm here for another 5-6 minutes. So please turn on your mic and ask whatever questions you have. Just out of curiosity, had anybody heard of the cycle double cover conjecture before? Or is it new for everyone?
I haven't heard about it.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Shani. Okay,
Me neither.
okay, thanks. All right. Well, then I suppose perhaps no one has heard about it before, so that's good. It's a very that's one of the cool things about graph theory and combinatorics, that you have these very simple to state problems that turn out to be incredibly difficult. I think it's one of the things that is really attractive about combinatorics. Another example that you may have heard of is a four-color theorem, which is now a theorem, but for many years it was a conjecture, and many people had given false proofs of that conjecture. But yeah, the statement is just so easy to state. So it's definitely more famous than the cycle double cover conjecture, and it's much older. Any other questions, concerns? So there were some questions pertaining to drawings using LaTeX. So I will just address that here and maybe put an announcement later. For drawings, you can use a package called TIKZ, T-I-K-Z. It's really good. But you can use any other packages available. On the other hand, you may also just make drawings on paper and take photos and just import them into your LaTeX file. So long as your drawings are neat and clean, that should be fine. But yeah, do not do the same for text. Text has to be typed in LaTeX. This is only for drawings. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to turn off the recording.